Hello and welcome to my 100th video on YouTube. I do not have a balloon drop or confetti, but what I do have is a brief chat about chapter 20 of book 1 of the Discourses by Epictetus, which is titled, How Reason Takes Cognizance of Itself. So, that's kind of a cumbersome title, I think. But I think what it's really trying to say is, our consciousness, our consciousness is aware of itself, how we are aware of ourselves, how we have this ability to be aware of ourselves. And, since we do have this ability to be aware of ourselves, it leads to a good life then in the Stoic sense if we use that ability to sharpen our life skills. And one of those life skills is actually the ability, to critical thinking, the ability to think critically, and to use those critical thinking skills then to make good judgments. Good judgments then lead to a better life, to a good life. So, this is sometimes, it's very easy sometimes to say this. I think it's easier said than done. And a lot of times, it's very easy for us to sort of judge other people's actions like, oh, they're not making the best decision for themselves. And, we're a little less likely sometimes to apply that same lens, to ourselves. And, but I think it's a good lesson to remember that we always need to be examining our behavior. We need to be examining our decisions. We need to be examining our impressions and, determining whether or not we're actually, acting in the correct way or the best way for us. Because a lot of times, one thing we will do ourselves that we don't necessarily do with other people is actually we tell ourselves, what we want to hear. So sometimes I think we're real quick to tell other people what they don't want to hear, but we don't necessarily always apply that lesson to ourselves. One thing Epictetus, though, brings up in this discourse that I think was really cool is like how if there is something that we consider important, like currency, like money, if there's a danger of counterfeit money, we have all these things in place that would be systems in place to ensure that money is actually legitimate and it's real. And so, how much more important it is then for us, for our actions, our daily actions, to apply that sort of same system of critical thought that we would to something that we consider critical, like currency. I thought that was a really good point because a lot of times I think we get on autopilot and we don't apply this sort of same sort of skills that we do for our external things like critically something like money, something like safety. We'd be aware of what's all around us. We'd be paying very close attention. We might not be so apt to do that, in our own everyday lives. Just when it comes to our own impressions, our own biases, our own, just judgments that we're making on a day-to-day basis. And so one of the students in this discourse actually says to Epictetus, he's like, yeah, but that's hard to do. And Epictetus answers back, well, like, yeah, but what do you think that something as important as this art of being able to critically think and being able to be self-aware, being aware of our decisions and this sort of thing is just going to be an easy thing to do? It's sort of the highest art there is of living is to be able to, develop this skill. And then, through this sort of good judgment that ultimately leads to wisdom, and so that leads to a good life. And so that's not an easy thing to do because, we have to train our minds, of course, to be aware of itself. We have to train ourselves. We have to, always sort of be, we have to be, vigilant that we are analyzing ourselves and not just telling ourselves what it is we want to hear, that we're always examining our decisions, that we're always examining the information for its validity for us. And, that just takes skill. It's not something that can just happen without effort. So, I thought this was a kind of a cool, brief little discourse that discusses a very important topic to Stoicism and a very important topic to leading a good life, and that is, utilizing critical thinking on a daily basis to make good judgments. Good judgments lead to wisdom and leads to, ultimately a better life, and that is the goal of Stoicism, is leading the best life possible for us. So, I think I'll stop with that. The next discourse is called, it's chapter 21 of book 1, and it is called To Those Who Wish to Be Admired. So that should be interesting, so stay tuned for that. Take care. Bye.